Bartolo Longo was not born into darkness. He walked into it by choice, blinded by ambition and curiosity. As a young man, he sought truth beyond the ordinary faith of his upbringing. The church, with its rules and mysteries, fascinated him, but he wanted more, answers to questions no priest dared ask. What lay beyond the veil of the visible world? What power whispered in the silence between prayers? In his search, Bartolo encountered men who promised enlightenment, secret knowledge, and freedom from divine authority. They spoke of rituals older than the church, of spirits that could grant wisdom and control over the unseen. Seduced by the promise of power, Bartolo abandoned his vows to God and entered a world of forbidden rites. The deeper he went, the more he felt the presence of something vast, ancient, and hungry watching him from the shadows. At first, it felt intoxicating. He could command fear, sense emotions, and manipulate those around him. But soon, the price became clear. The whispers that once guided him began to torment him. Shadows moved where there was no light. His reflection twisted into faces he did not recognize. He could no longer pray. The words burned in his throat. Bartolo had not mastered the darkness had mastered him. One night, as he stood in his chamber surrounded by relics of blasphemy, the air grew cold. A figure emerged from the blackness, a presence not of this world. It spoke with a voice that was not sound but thought, crawling into his mind like smoke. "You belong to me now." The demon had come to claim what Bartolo had promised. Terror consumed him. Every word of every forbidden pact replayed in his memory. His soul trembled at the realization he had sold it for illusions. But in that abyss of despair, something unexpected happened. A faint memory surfaced, his mother's prayers, the sound of bells, the warmth of light through stained glass. He fell to his knees and cried out, not to the spirits he once served, but to the God he had betrayed. The darkness recoiled, shrieking, furious. "You cannot escape me," the voice thundered. Yet Bartolo's prayer grew stronger. For the first time in years, he wept, not out of fear but repentance. The storm that followed was unlike any natural storm. The candles in his chamber extinguished, yet a soft light appeared, not from fire, but from heaven. The walls shook, and the demonic presence screamed, dissolving into the void as Bartolo's voice rose in prayer. When it was over, he lay exhausted but alive. He had faced the demon and survived, not by strength or knowledge, but by surrender. From that night on, Bartolo dedicated his life to undoing what he had once done. He traveled through towns, preaching redemption, helping those trapped in the same darkness that had nearly destroyed him. People said he carried an aura of peace, that no shadow could remain in his presence. He built orphanages, restored churches, and spent his remaining years spreading a message that burned with divine truth. No one is beyond forgiveness. No evil is stronger than the mercy of God. Even after his death, witnesses claimed to see him in visions, calm, radiant, holding a rosary that glowed like fire. Those who were lost said they heard his voice urging them to turn away from darkness, to seek light before it was too late. Bartolo Longo had once stood before the demon and nearly lost his soul. Yet through faith, repentance, and mercy, he conquered it, not as a hero, but as a man redeemed. His story remains a timeless reminder that even when evil whispers and shadows threaten to consume the heart, those who call upon God's light will never be truly lost. Candle, fire, Latin cross. As word of Bartolo Longo's redemption spread across Italy, pilgrims began to flock to the small town where he lived out his days. They came not to see a miracle worker, but a man who had faced the deepest horror imaginable and walked away reborn. The air around his chapel carried an unexplainable stillness, peaceful, yet powerful, as if the ground itself remembered the battle between light and shadow that had taken place there. People whispered stories of strange occurrences, candles that lit themselves during prayer, a faint scent of roses in rooms where no flowers grew, and the sound of distant bells ringing when no one was near the tower. Those who entered with despair often left in tears, feeling lighter, as if an invisible burden had been lifted from their hearts. Many believed Bartolo's spirit still lingered, guarding souls against the same darkness he had once faced. One winter night, a priest arrived, haunted by nightmares of a faceless shadow whispering temptations in his ear. He confessed to Bartolo that his faith was failing, that he had begun to question everything he had sworn to uphold. Bartolo listened quietly, his eyes calm and full of compassion. He said softly, "The demon you hear is the same that once spoke to me. It thrives on fear and pride. You must silence it with surrender, not defiance. That night, they prayed together until dawn. The priest wept, trembling as a sudden warmth enveloped him. He later testified that he had seen, for just an instant, a blinding figure behind Bartolo, wreathed in light, its hands resting on his shoulders. When the morning came, the priest was at peace. The shadow never returned. As years passed, Bartolo became known as the man who wrestled with the devil and lived to tell the truth. But he never glorified himself. "I am not holy," he said often, "only forgiven." He spent every remaining breath teaching that the power of evil is nothing compared to the mercy of God, that even the blackest soul can be washed clean by faith. When Bartolo finally fell ill, his followers gathered around him. The night before his death, witnesses said his room filled with an otherworldly glow. He looked upward, eyes shining, and whispered, "The light has come for me." Then, with a faint smile, he murmured a prayer and took his final breath. At that very moment, the bells of the chapel began to ring on their own. The storm outside stilled. Pilgrims reported seeing a soft light moving toward the sky, rising above the cathedral like a flame. It was as if heaven itself had opened to receive the soul that had once faced hell and triumphed. In the centuries that followed, Bartolo Longo's story became immortal, a testament to the strength of faith and the boundless mercy of God. Those who visit his resting place still claim to feel his presence, to hear faint prayers whispered in the air, and to sense a hand guiding them toward peace. He was the man who faced the demon and survived, not by power, not by pride, but by surrender to divine love. His life stands as a message carved into eternity. No darkness can defeat the soul that walks toward the light. Candle, fire, Latin cross. After Bartolo Longo's passing, the world did not fall silent, it awoke. The small chapel where he had spent his final years became a living beacon. Those who entered said the air itself hummed with peace. The walls, once plain and unremarkable, seemed to glow faintly in candlelight, as if they held within them the memory of Bartolo's prayers. Pilgrims spoke of hearing whispers of comfort when they prayed alone, voices that told them to let go of fear, to forgive, to trust in God. But one night, years after his death, something extraordinary occurred. A violent storm rolled over the village. Thunder split the heavens, lightning struck the nearby hills, and torrential rain beat against the chapel walls. The priest who tended the chapel that night, Father Rinaldi, wrote later that he felt a powerful presence moving through the air. The candles extinguished, and the entire chapel was plunged into darkness. Then, from the altar, a single flame reignited on its own. Father Rinaldi knelt, trembling, as the flame began to rise, not burning upward, but floating, expanding, until the entire chapel was bathed in light. And from that light, a figure emerged, calm, radiant, familiar. It was Bartolo Longo. His expression was peaceful, his hands clasped around a rosary that shimmered like fire and glass. The priest heard no words with his ears, but the message thundered in his soul. Fear nothing. Light always returns. Darkness only lasts as long as faith sleeps. The storm outside stopped instantly. The bells of the chapel began to ring on their own, one by one, echoing across the valley. When dawn came, the villagers found the sky clear, the earth fresh and glistening, and the air filled with the scent of roses, though none had been planted for miles. From that day forward, miracles multiplied. The sick recovered after praying in Bartolo's chapel. People tormented by nightmares or demonic oppression said they were freed after lighting a single candle in his name. His story, once whispered in fear, became a declaration of faith. He had not only faced the demon and survived, he had defeated the legacy of darkness itself. Decades later, when the church investigated his life, witnesses recounted visions of Bartolo standing at the altar, his eyes lifted to heaven, surrounded by a halo of gold and white. Scholars called him the man who walked through hell and brought back the light. And so his legacy endures, eternal, unshaken, luminous. Bartolo Longo's journey is proof that no soul is too lost, no sin too great, and no darkness too deep for the mercy of God. He was the man who faced the demon and lived, not because he was fearless, but because he learned that faith, even when small as a whisper, can command the heavens. Candle, fire, Latin cross. As the centuries passed, the name Bartolo Longo was spoken not just in churches, but in homes, on battlefields, in prisons, and even in places where faith had all but vanished. His story became a symbol, the story of a man who had touched the deepest darkness, yet emerged shining with light. Legends began to circulate. Some said that on nights when evil stirred in the world, when rituals of darkness were whispered in secret, a shadow of light appeared nearby. A tall figure, cloaked in a faint glow, holding a rosary that burned like a sword. Demons fled at the sight of him. The faithful believed it was Bartolo, returning not to condemn, but to protect. Others told of dreams. People lost in despair would see a man in priestly garments walking toward them through fog, his eyes gentle but fierce with purpose. He would take their hand, whisper, "Pray, and you will see," and when they awoke, the fear that once consumed them was gone. Doctors, soldiers, mothers, and children all claimed to have seen him. In one small Italian town, a girl dying from fever cried out in the night. Her parents rushed to her side and found her smiling through tears. "The priest came," she whispered weakly, "the one who fought the devil. He told me not to be afraid." The next morning, she was completely healed. The doctors had no explanation. The church eventually canonized Bartolo Longo, declaring him blessed, but for many, titles meant little. To the people, he was more than a saint. He was proof that redemption was real. Proof that even those who once walked beside demons could rise to walk with angels. And somewhere beyond time and death, it is said Bartolo stands before the gates of heaven, his rosary in hand, praying for the souls still lost in the shadows. Every bead he touches becomes a light that falls to earth, guiding another heart back home. The wind over Pompeii still carries his prayer, soft, steady, eternal. No one is beyond mercy. No one is beyond love. Return to the light before it's too late. Candle Bartolo Longo, the man who faced hell and became heaven's guardian. Latin Cross,